Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today's build is a request from Blackhole252 on Patreon. This is GhostBlade. After the build, hey, maybe check out my Patreon, if you want. So what do we want from this build? Well, we need to be a fierce warrior with inhuman strength who can tear through entire armies. We also need to bind the souls of the people we kill, raising them as undead to do our bidding. And despite our prickly exterior, we do actually care for people, so we'll need to be able to protect those under our care. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be doing a point buy. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your strength, dexterity, and charisma are high enough to multiclass. Starting off with a 15 in strength, we're strong enough to bend a sword with one hand, which is not something just anyone can do. Dexterity's 13, we're definitely quicker than the average person, but not quite to the level of our superhuman strength. We'll make Constitution 12. Bandages don't really count as armor, so we'll need to be able to take a hit. Intelligence is only 10, mostly because we just don't need it for anything. Then Wisdom is another 12, because GB definitely has some hidden depths to him. And we'll finish off with an 11 in Charisma, because we do have a reputation and we're scary when we want to be, but we can also go unnoticed when we want to, despite, being a legendary figure. So it isn't exactly clear what GhostBlade actually is. He could just be a human wrapped in bandages with a magic sword, but it's also somewhat heavily implied that he's just straight up death who has taken a physical form. So we could use human or Aasimar or even just custom lineage, but I'm going to go with Aetherborn. He definitely reminds me of one physically, especially around the glowing eyes, and in Magic, the Aetherborn are creatures composed of black mana, which is, of course, the mana associated with death. Aetherborn get +2 to their charisma, bumping ours into multiclassing range, and +1 to 2 other ability scores, which we'll use to round off our strength and dexterity to 16 and 14 respectively. We have 60 feet of dark vision, we're naturally menacing, giving us proficiency in intimidation, and since we're born of ether, we have resistance to necrotic damage. There isn't really a background for is possibly the Grim Reaper, as far as I can tell, so we'll build our own background to get proficiency with history and insight. We're good at reading people, and we've personally experienced a lot of the important historical events, so it makes sense that we know about them. GB is introduced kidnapping a princess, so we'll start off as a rogue, for proficiency in athletics, deception, perception, and sleight of hand. Then we'll bump our athletics and intimidation up to expertises. We can make a sneak attack, adding a d6 of damage to one attack we hit with each turn using a finesse or ranged weapon, if we had advantage on the attack roll or an ally within 5 feet of the attack target. I would call GhostBlade's weapons a scimitar and a short sword, both of which are finesse, and actually both of which are light, so we can dual wield them. Second level rogues also get cunning action, letting us dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action, so we can weave in and out of combat. GhostBlade has a certain, let's say, enthusiasm for battle, so we'll be done with rogue and switch over to Barbarian to get the ability to enter a rage as a bonus action. For up to a minute, we get advantage on strength checks and saves, our strength-based melee attacks deal extra damage, and we get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, so we can shrug off most weapons that actually hit us. We do get unarmored defense, so we get hit a little bit less though, making our AC 10 plus our dexterity and constitution modifiers while we're just wearing our bandages. At second level, we can make reckless attacks, getting advantage on strength-based melee attacks for the turn, at the cost of giving enemies advantage on attacks against us. Quick reminder that this does work with our sneak attack, since we can use strength to attack with our finesse weapons. GhostBlade never lets down his guard, so we also get a danger sense, giving us advantage on dexterity saves against effects that are visible, like spells and traps. Third level barbarians can pick up a skill, I'll say survival, for when we're traveling in the desert, and we can call upon the spirits of the dead as an ancestral guardian. While we're raging, the first creature we hit each turn is targeted by our ancestral protectors. These spirits harass the target, giving them disadvantage on attacks made against creatures other than us until the start of our next turn. If they still attack someone else and manage to hit, the attack's partially turned aside, and the creature gets resistance to that attack's damage. Continuing on with never letting our guard down, the alert feat adds 5 to our initiative rolls, makes it so we can't be surprised while we're conscious, and prevents creatures from getting advantage on attacks against us just because we can't see them. 5th level barbarians get an extra attack with the attack action, freeing up our bonus action if you were using it for 2-weapon fighting, as well as fast movement to boost our speed by 10 feet. Then our spirit friends get more active at 6th level. When a creature other than us within 30 feet takes damage, we can use our reaction to shield that creature from harm, reducing the damage they take by 2d6. We get Feral Instinct at 7th level, which gives us advantage on initiative rolls and lets us act normally when we're surprised if the first thing we do on our turn is enter a rage. Of course, we can't be surprised thanks to alert, but the initiative advantage is nice. There's also instinctive pounce. When we enter our rage, we can move up to half of our speed as part of the same bonus action. This helps ease the overcrowding on our bonus action a little bit, since previously we couldn't enter rage and cunning action dash during the same turn. I mean, technically we still can't, but at least we get half a dash. We'll boost our strength to 18 with our 8th level ASI, then at 9th level, Brutal Critical lets us add an extra die to our damage whenever we crit. So a crit with our scimitar at present deals 5d6 if we can include our sneak attack damage, which we'll generally be able to thanks to Reckless Attack giving all of our attacks advantage. That's not quite good enough though, so we'll switch classes one more time and become a Hexblade Warlock. We're a Hex Warrior, getting proficiency with armor and weapons that we already had proficiency with, and letting us use our lackluster charisma in place of our superhuman strength for our attacks if we really want to for some reason. More importantly, we can place a Hexblade's curse on a creature as a bonus action once per rest. For the next minute, our attacks deal extra damage to that creature equal to our proficiency bonus, our attacks against them crit on 19 or on 20, and if we kill them, we heal ourselves for an amount equal to our charisma modifier plus our warlock level. Now, we do get spells as a warlock, but GB doesn't really cast spells for the most part. Plus, we only get 2 spell slots per rest, and we can't use them at all if we're raging anyway, so I'm not going to be too fussed about taking as many spells as we can. There's going to be plenty of slots left over if you want to fill them in. I'm only going to touch on a couple. We do get a couple of cantrips. I'll say True Strike so we can get advantage on an attack without giving enemies advantage, and Booming Blade, since that at least is just adding damage to our sword attacks. Our first Eldritch Invocation is Armor of Shadows, letting us cast Mage Armor on ourselves at will, which does end up being a higher AC than our unarmored defense. Our second one has to wait for us to get Pact of the Blade at 3rd level though, engraving spooky runes on our scimitar to make it the actual GhostBlade, so we can summon it to our hand as an action. And once we make it an improved Pact weapon, it gets a +1 bonus to its attack and damage rolls, and it works as a focus for our spells. At 4th level, we'll cap off our strength and pick up Green Flame Blade as another cantrip that doesn't rely on our terrible charisma modifier. For our 5th level invocation, we actually have 2 options here. The one I prefer is Cursebringer, which transforms our Pact weapon into a rune-engraved greatsword. Whenever we hit with it, we can burn a spell slot to deal an additional 2d8 slashing damage to the target per level of the spell slot expended, along with reducing their speed to 0 for a turn. Plus, if we kill the target of our Hexblade's curse with the sword, we can immediately move the curse to another creature, though that doesn't extend the duration of the curse. So that's my preferred option. The only problem is, it's specifically a greatsword, a 2-handed sword that deals 2d6 slashing damage on a hit and doesn't have finesse, so it doesn't work with sneak attack. My recommendation is to talk with your DM and see if they'd be okay reflavoring it from a single greatsword to both your scimitar and short sword, and say you have to be wielding both to get the benefit. It still takes up 2 hands, both weapons deal a d6 normally, so it's still effectively 2d6 damage. It's not that huge of a leap, it really just feels like a bit of a reflavoring, and also it gets finesse. But, bright side, it doesn't have heavy, so we won't be going with Great Weapon Master. If your DM doesn't go for that though, which, fair enough, they're within their rights to say no, don't take Cursebringer here, and instead take Eldritch Smite. Once per turn when we hit with our Pact weapon, we can burn a spell slot to deal an extra 1d8 force damage, plus another 1d8 per level of the spell slot. And we can automatically knock the target prone if they're huge or smaller. That's a perfectly serviceable option. It's less damage, but hardly anything resists force damage, and auto knockdown is fantastic. Next we'll start to get some more dangerous undead servants with the Hexblade's Accursed Spectre. Once per day when we kill a humanoid, we can bind its spirit as a spectre, a ghost that can drain life from enemies. The spectre obeys our commands and sticks around until we finish a long rest. Summon Undead can summon a ghost, zombie, or skeleton to fight for us, and Summon Warrior Spirit can call a barbarian, fighter, or monk. I wasn't originally going to include Warrior Spirit, but the spirit it summons is technically an undead, so, there you go. Undying Servitude is another Eldritch Invocation that lets us cast Animate Dead once per day without using a spell slot, calling up a zombie or skeleton that's under our control for 24 hours. And unlike Summon Undead and Summon Warrior Spirit, this one doesn't use our concentration, meaning it can still fight with us even while we're raging. We'll use our last ASI to bump our Constitution to 14 for some extra HP. Still doesn't bump our unarmored defense higher than our mage armor, but we can take more hits than ever. Our capstone is the 9th level of Warlock for Whispers of the Grave, letting us cast Speak with Dead at will without using spell slots, as well as Dance Macabre, a 5th level spell that reanimates up to 5 corpses as zombies or skeletons under our control who stick around for up to an hour with our concentration. Now that the build is complete, the question becomes, how good is it? Well, we can hit for enormous damage. If we hit the target of our Hexblade's curse with Booming Blade, using our Cursebringer and Sneak Attack, we can hit for 3d6 plus 10d8 plus 11 slashing damage, along with 3d8 thunder damage. If that hit is a crit, which isn't unlikely since we'll have advantage on the attack and double crit chance from the curse, that's 7d6 plus 20d8 plus 11 slashing damage plus 6d8 thunder, which, if my math is correct, is over 120 damage on average. We also play a little bit of a tank role, as our ancestral spirits encourage enemies to focus on us and not our allies, since we can make it hard to hit them and even harder to damage them. Plus, we're not really that easy to damage ourselves. While raging, we've got 4 resistances that effectively boost our already hefty 150 HP, plus advantage on strength and dexterity saves, and thanks to starting as a rogue, proficiency with dexterity and intelligence saves. And if that wasn't enough, we regain 10 HP whenever we kill a creature we've cursed, and with our Cursebringer, we can move our curse around. If our enemies are weak enough, we can just plow through entire crowds, killing a creature with our first attack, shifting the curse, killing that creature with our second attack, shifting the curse again, and repeating on our next turn. On the other hand, while we can summon undead to help us, they're hampered by our bad charisma or just from being basic zombies and skeletons, which are not the sturdiest of creatures. Actually, that does lead to something fun we can do, though. That thing I was just saying about plowing through a crowd of enemies and healing with each one we kill? Yeah, there's actually nothing stopping us from using our Hexblade's curse on an undead that we summon, so we can use Dance Macabre to call up 5 skeletons, curse one, and go to town to heal ourselves for 50 HP if we need it. Oh wait, I'm in the downsides bit. We only have 2 spell slots per rest. They are 5th level spell slots, but that does mean we have to choose between casting a spell to summon more minions, and burning a slot for a huge burst of damage. And finally, as always, Barbarians are a little bit annoying to multiclass with spellcasters. We mostly mitigated that this time with Cursebringer or Eldritch Smite, providing a use for our spell slots, but the spells that we do actually want to cast, like Booming Blade and Dance Macabre, can't be cast or concentrated on while we rage. Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. No poll again this time. Next week is a double build to celebrate the return of some of my favorite games as a kid. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below, and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can check the description for the link to my Patreon for access to the Discord channel, early access to future builds, and exclusive Patreon content. Thanks again for watching. I will see y'all later.